It was raining the morning the letter came. The sound on the kitchen window was soft and steady, like the world trying to calm me. The kettle hummed, and the room smelled like ginger tea and the lemon I used on the counter last night. I wiped the rim of my blue mug and looked out at the rosemary bending under the water, brave and green. The envelope was thick and official. County seal. My name in sharp black ink. My hands were clean, but they shook as I broke the paper. Inside was a notice about Mom's death, words like inquiry and statements on file. There was a photocopy of handwriting I knew better than my own, my sister's. In neat lines it said I had forgotten a dose, that I had closed Mom's door early, that I had left the oxygen running on low, that I was distracted. I sat down at the table. The wood felt cool under my palm. I heard the rain, the kettle, the small tick of the clock above the stove. I heard my own breath. Mom's room was still and simple now, bed made tight, lotion with lavender on the nightstand, the soft blanket folded at the end. I could still smell her hand cream on some days if I stood in the doorway and closed my eyes. My phone buzzed. A message from my sister, Anna. "Please don't make this worse," it read. "Tell them you were tired. We need to keep it simple." Simple, she wrote. The word cut like thin glass. I stared at the letter again, at the tidy way she listed times I was not in the room and forgot to mention the hours I was, the meals I cooked, the chart I kept, the night I slept in the chair with my head against Mom's blanket while the oxygen hissed like a soft sea. I set the paper down and held the warm mug with both hands until the heat went from the cup into my bones. I did not shout. I did not call her. The front door closed somewhere far away in my memory. Mom's door, the last time I tucked her in. "Good night, sweetheart," she had whispered, the same way she did when I was small. I could still feel her fingers squeeze mine. I could still feel the quiet. Across town, in her neat house with white curtains and clean floors, Anna was writing me into a story I did not live. She had always liked lists. She had always liked being right. I had always loved her for taking care of things I could not see. Now I could see too much. I folded the letter and slid it back into the envelope. I wrote one line in my notebook. "I will tell the truth in light. I will not break myself to carry this." The rain tapped. The kettle clicked off. The garden held its breath with me. I did not know then how her words would turn back on her, how her voice would carry the weight she tried to put on me. I only knew that a line had been drawn across our kitchen floor, clean and thin, and I was standing on one side with my hands steady. When her confession finally came, it would shatter what was left of our old life. But that morning, it was only me, the rain, the tea, and a promise to move with quiet courage until the truth could stand on its own. I grew up in a small town where the streets smelled like rain and warm bread. Our house sat on a quiet block with a narrow garden, a rosemary bush that never gave up, and a kitchen that looked out at the green. Mom kept the windows clean and the kettle ready. I learned to measure a day by the sound of water heating and the light on the table. There were only 3 of us for most of my life. Dad died when I was 12. It was winter. We wore wool hats to the funeral, and Mom held both our hands like we were small again. She cried with her lips pressed tight, the way she did when she did not want to scare us. After that, we learned to be close. Not because everything was perfect, but because we needed each other to keep the house warm. Anna is my older sister by 2 years. She was always the list maker. She liked lines and boxes and a clean finish at the end of a day. As a child, she made chore charts with little stars and asked me to pick a color. I picked blue. I am softer by nature. I like slow mornings, the smell of tea, and the quiet part of a song. When we were little, we ran a lemonade stand that never made a profit because I kept giving cups away. Anna would count the coins and shake her head like a tiny shopkeeper. Then she would bring me a cookie and say, "Next time, charge." She was bossy and kind at the same time. We laughed more than we fought. We slept with our doors open so we could whisper in the dark. Mom was gentle. She worked at the library, shelved books, and knew half the town by name. She read to us at night in a low voice that made the room feel safe. She said simple things that have stayed with me my whole life. Tell the truth. Be kind to your own heart. Eat soup when you are sad. She kept a small tin of lemon candy in her bag and shared one when we had a hard day. Her health began to slip in quiet ways. A slow climb up the stairs, a long breath at the top, a cough that sounded tired. The doctor used words like lungs and weak and we need to be careful. Mom waved a hand and said she would be fine. She did not like to make a fuss, but the fuss came anyway. We brought home an oxygen machine that hissed like a quiet sea. We learned the soft beeps and the way the tubing felt cool in our hands. We decided, together, to keep her at home. She wanted her own bed. She wanted her own window with the lace curtains. I moved back into my old room with the creak in the floorboard near the dresser and brought my blue mug and the soft blanket I love. Anna lived 10 minutes away. She took charge of calls and forms. I took charge of soup and baths and the simple clean work of each day. Anna made a binder. She divided it into sections with colored tabs. Appointments, meds, meals, notes. She wrote times in neat rows and taped a schedule to the fridge. She spoke to the nurse with a pen in her hand and a nod that meant, "I will do this right." I loved her for it. It made me feel like we were safe under a big umbrella. My work was the softer kind. I held the spoon, I tied the robe, I rubbed lotion into Mom's hands while she told me stories about the year she almost moved to the coast and changed her mind the last minute because she felt like the town still needed her. She asked me to open the window an inch at night so she could smell rain on warm days. I laid my head on the blanket near her knee and listened to the oxygen hum. The house changed shape around the machine in the chair I slept in. We moved the table closer to the window so Mom could see the garden. We put the ring dish from the sink, just a little dish for tiny things, on the nightstand to hold her favorite lemon candy. The room took on the clean, soft smells of soap, tea, and lavender hand cream. Even the light seemed gentle in there, as if it knew to lower its voice. We were a good team when we were not tired. I made soup that tasted like home. Anna kept the nurse's number visible. She lined up the pill bottles on a tray like soldiers. We learned the tiny rituals that make a hard day easier. Warm the spoon so it doesn't shock a cool mouth. Turn the straw so the corner doesn't poke a lip. Leave the radio on low in the afternoon so the room feels busy with small, kind sounds. But the strange showed sometimes. Anna's care came out like instructions. Mine came out like lullabies. She would say, "Did you chart the 2 p.m. dose?" I would say, "She was sleepy, so I gave it at 2:15. Her mouth would thin. "You can't keep moving things," she'd say. "It matters." I would nod and feel small in my own house. I did not want to be wrong. I also did not want to turn Mom into a list. Mom felt it too. She would pat Anna's hand and say, "You are doing a good job," and then pat mine and say, "You are also doing a good job." She had a way of making two truths sit together without a fight. When we went to war, she called a truce with a joke. "I'll fire you both if you don't eat your dinner," she'd say, her eyes dancing. There were sweet days in the middle of the hard ones. The morning we set her hair in soft curls because she asked to feel pretty. The afternoon we played her favorite record, the one with the scratch in the third song that made her smile years ago and made her smile again now. We cut a tiny slice of lemon cake and let it melt on her tongue. "Perfect," she whispered, and closed her eyes like a child at a summer fair. The nurse came every few days. She had kind hands and the kind of voice that keeps a room from falling apart. She checked the machine, adjusted the tubing, and wrote neat notes in a small book. She asked us how we were sleeping. Anna would answer with numbers. I would answer with feelings. The nurse listened to both and said, "You're doing well," even when we felt like we were failing in small ways all the time. At night, the house was quiet in a different way. The oxygen made its soft sea sound. The clock above the stove ticked steady. Sometimes I sat in the chair and read to Mom until my voice went thin. Sometimes she held my fingers and said, "Tell me about a normal day." And I would tell her about nothing. Rosemary in the garden, a recipe I wanted to try, a bird that liked the fence. She would smile and close her eyes and say, "More." Anna came by in the evenings with a new list in her hand. She checked the dial on the machine. She looked at the chart. She asked if I had set an alarm for the next dose. "Yes," I would say, and show her the phone with the little bell icons lined up like buttons. "Good," she'd say, and then softer, "Thank you." She was as tired as I was, just in a different way. Mom liked the door closed at night, but not all the way. "Leave a finger's width," she'd say, and hold up her little finger. "It makes me feel less alone." I watched that space while she slept, the thin line of light from the hall laying across the floor like a quiet promise. One night, in a whisper, she said, "Take care of each other when I can't remind you." I said we will. I wanted it to be true more than anything. The last week was a long, soft slope. We knew we were walking down it even while we made tea and buttered toast. Mom needed more help to sit up. Her breath came in shorter lines. We learned to keep the room warm, but the air fresh. We learned to say, "It's okay," even when it wasn't. Anna grew sharper when she was scared. I grew slower. Both of us thought our way was the way to keep the world together. On our last good day, we opened the window an inch and let rain smell drift in. I put rosemary in a glass and set it on the sill so the scent could travel. Mom held my wrist with her cool fingers and said, "This is a good house." She meant the walls and us inside them. In the evening, she squeezed my hand and said, "Don't stay up late." And I laughed because she had been saying that since I was 13. The night everything changed was not loud. It was gentle and wrong at the same time. I will save the details for later. In the morning, the room was too still. The nurse came. Her hands were the same kind hands, but they moved differently. Anna stood by the window with her arms folded and her face like a sheet of paper. I sat in the chair and held the blanket. The oxygen hissed and then stopped. The machine was turned off.
The house listened and then adjusted to the new quiet. We planned the small ceremony Mom wanted. No fuss, a little music, lemon cake after. People came and said the things people say. She was kind. She loved you girls. She made the best soup. We nodded and smiled and stood side by side like we had been taught in childhood. I spoke for both of us at the church in a voice that didn't shake. I said, "We will take care of each other." Anna squeezed my hand at the end. I squeezed back. After, the house did that thing grief makes the house do. It kept all the same shapes, but everything felt a half-inch to the left. The garden grew, the kettle hummed, the clock ticked, but the echo was different. I slept at my place again with the window open, a finger's width, because the night felt kinder that way. Anna returned to her neat house with white curtains and floors that did not squeak. There are always papers after a death at home. The nurse had told us this. A review to be sure, questions that need answers. It is normal, she said. It is not a blame. We trusted her. We both gave our statements. I wrote mine at the kitchen table in the early morning with tea at my elbow. I told the truth the way I tell it, soft, clear, with the shapes of rooms and smells of days so people could understand where we lived. Anna sent hers in quickly. "It's done," she said. I took care of it. In the weeks after the service, small cracks showed. Anna's voice had a new tightness. She corrected my memories in small ways that did not matter until they did. "You went to the store at 4, not 3, she'd say. "You left the door open too wide," she'd say. "You forget things," she'd say, and laugh like it was a joke, but the laugh had a hard edge. I pulled my hands back into my sleeves like a child and went quiet. I kept thinking of Mom's last soft orders. Be kind to each other. Tell the truth. Eat soup. I made soup twice a week and gave a bowl to Mr. Lopez next door because he checked on our trash bins when we forgot. I wrote in my small notebook, not to defend myself, to remember things without my mind turning them into fog. I wrote the time the kettle clicked off, the way the rosemary looked after rain, the exact words Mom used when she asked for the window a finger's width, not an inch. The morning the letter came, I was ready in a way I did not know I would be. The county seal, the words inquiry and statements on file, the neat list in my sister's hand that wrote me into a role I had not played. I saw how fear had turned her into someone who needed a story with clean lines and another person to hold a blur. I saw how easily love can be used like paper to cover a stain. I put the envelope back on the table and made another cup of tea. The rain kept a steady rhythm on the window. The rosemary looked darker under the water, like it had decided to bow but not break. I held my mug with both hands and let my breath slow down.
There was a name at the bottom of the letter. Mr. Hale, County Health. A number. I called. His voice was steady, not cold, not warm, just careful. He said he wanted to hear from me. He said it was normal to ask questions after a death at home. He asked if we could meet. I said yes. We picked Thursday, 10 a.m. After I hung up, I called the nurse. Her name is Carla. She had kind hands and a soft voice that knew how to steady a room. "Carla," I said, "we got a letter." "I'm not surprised," she said. "Don't be afraid. Tell the truth. Bring your notes." I had them, I said, and I looked at my notebook on the table, the pages with dates and small, careful lines. "Did you turn in yours?" "I did," she said. "My notes are clear. The oxygen settings, the times I was there. Call me if you need me to be with you." "Would you come on Thursday?" I asked, the words small but sure. "I will," she said. "You don't have to do this alone." It was raining the morning the letter came. The sound on the kitchen window was soft and steady, like the world trying to calm me. The kettle hummed, and the room smelled like ginger tea and the lemon I used on the counter last night. I wiped the rim of my blue mug and looked out at the rosemary bending under the water, brave and green. The envelope was thick and official. County seal. My name in sharp black ink. My hands were clean, but they shook as I broke the paper. Inside was a notice about Mom's death, words like inquiry and statements on file. There was a photocopy of handwriting I knew better than my own, my sister's. In neat lines it said I had forgotten a dose, that I had closed Mom's door early, that I had left the oxygen running on low, that I was distracted. I sat down at the table. The wood felt cool under my palm. I heard the rain, the kettle, the small tick of the clock above the stove. I heard my own breath. Mom's room was still and simple now, bed made tight, lotion with lavender on the nightstand, the soft blanket folded at the end. I could still smell her hand cream on some days if I stood in the doorway and closed my eyes. My phone buzzed. A message from my sister, Anna. "Please don't make this worse," it read. "Tell them you were tired. We need to keep it simple." "Simple," she wrote. The word cut like thin glass. I stared at the letter again, at the tidy way she listed times I was not in the room and forgot to mention the hours I was, the meals I cooked, the chart I kept, the night I slept in the chair with my head against Mom's blanket while the oxygen hissed like a soft sea. I set the paper down and held the warm mug with both hands until the heat went from the cup into my bones. I did not shout. I did not call her. The front door closed somewhere far away in my memory. Mom's door, the last time I tucked her in. "Good night, sweetheart," she had whispered, the same way she did when I was small. I could still feel her fingers squeeze mine. I could still feel the quiet. Across town, in her neat house with white curtains and clean floors, Anna was writing me into a story I did not live. She had always liked lists. She had always liked being right. I had always loved her for taking care of things I could not see. Now I could see too much. I folded the letter and slid it back into the envelope. I wrote one line in my notebook. "I will tell the truth in light. I will not break myself to carry this." The rain tapped. The kettle clicked off. The garden held its breath with me. I did not know then how her words would turn back on her, how her voice would carry the weight she tried to put on me. I only knew that a line had been drawn across our kitchen floor, clean and thin, and I was standing on one side with my hands steady. When her confession finally came, it would shatter what was left of our old life. But that morning, it was only me, the rain, the tea, and a promise to move with quiet courage until the truth could stand on its own.
"You should have said you missed an alarm," she said. "It would have been easier." "It would have been a lie," I said. "We owe Mom better than easy." Her face changed again, this time a little collapse that made her look like the girl who once sat on the curb with me and cried when our lemonade spilled in the grass. "I can't," she began, then stopped. She closed her eyes and opened them. "Do you want me to be the bad one?" "I don't want a bad one," I said. "I want us to be sisters." She laughed, a sharp, thin line of a sound. "Sisters," she said, as if it were a word she had never tried on. She picked up the daisies, now crisp at the edges, and threw them gently into the trash. "There, I did something honest." "Anna," I said, and the whole house filled with that one name. She shook her head and left. The door closed with that soft click that had started to sound like a period, not a comma. The garden was still. The night lay against the window like a cool hand. The next day, Mr. Hale called. "We checked the machine," he said. "There was a change at 12:11 a.m. It went down 1 liter per minute. It went back up at 12:13. Then at 1:02, it went down again. It stayed there. I don't know if this was a button bumped by a blanket or a tired hand, but that is what it says. We will put it in the report." My hand found the back of the chair again. "Thank you," I said, "for telling me plain."
I walked home in a light rain. The rosemary shone. The door closed with a soft click behind me. I dried my hair with a towel and made tea. I sat with my notebook and wrote one line: "I will not carry what is not mine." Then I wrote another: "I will forgive her one day, but not before the truth sits on the table and we both look at it." That evening, Anna texted. "Can we talk?" she wrote. "At the house." I wrote back, "Come at 7. I'll have tea." I stood in the kitchen and set the table the way Mom liked when she wanted us to be gentle with each other. 2 cups, a small plate with lemon wedges, a sprig of rosemary in a jar, the window a finger's width open, even though the air was cool. The clock ticked. My heart did not. When she came in, the smell of rain followed her. She put her coat on the hook. She did not look at the binder on the shelf. She did not look at the jar. She looked at me. Her face held too many things at once: fear, pride, love, a tightness that comes from holding a heavy story in your mouth. "Sit," I said. She sat. The chair made a small sound on the floor and then went still. "I brought something," I said, and I slid the small folder across the table, not as a threat, as a map. She placed her hands on it, then pulled them back like it was hot. "I know what's in there," she said. "I think you do, and I think it wants to leave your body." She laughed a little broken. "You and your sentences," she said. "Tell me," I said. "Tell me everything. Not the clean version, the truth. We are the only two who can give it to Mom now. We are the only two who can give it to ourselves." She looked at the window, at the rosemary, at the cup, at her hands. She took a breath so deep I could hear the bottom of it. The door was still a finger's width open. The rain had stopped. The garden was very quiet, the kind of quiet that comes right before a truth makes a sound like a soft bell. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, I saw my sister, not the list maker, not the binder, not the careful story, but the girl who once told me she broke Dad's watch and hid it because she was afraid, and then cried with relief when he said watches can be fixed. She opened her mouth. The words came like slow water,
the confession that would change us, sat up and asked for a chair. She kept her eyes on the steam curling up from her cup. Then she lifted her head and looked at me like we were girls again, telling the truth under a blanket with the light off. "I turned it down," she said. The words were small and heavy. "At 12:10. It was loud and Mom's breath looked tight and I panicked. I thought a minute would calm everything. I thought I would turn it back up right away. I did. For a minute. Then later, around 1, I turned it down again. I told myself I would only do it while I cleaned the tube and fixed the corner of the blanket. I forgot to turn it back up."
"I'm glad," he said. Anna did not wait for me to lead. She spoke in the plain way of a person who has decided to put the heaviest box down on the ground. She told him the times. She told him about the dial. She told him about the delivery. She told him about fear. She did not add excuses. She did not make herself small or me large. She did not try to make the story trace a neat line. She let it be a true one. "Thank you," he said when she finished. I heard him breathe on the other end. "I will add this to the file." The report was never about blame. It was always about clarity. Your mother was at the end of her life. Your choices did not decide the whole thing, but your honesty will decide how you live with it. I am grateful you chose to call. "Will there be trouble?" she asked, very small. "There will be a letter that says we recommend training for families," he said. "There will be a note that says settings were changed. There will be a line that says addendum supplied by family member and your name on it. There will be no punishments from us. We are not that office." She closed her eyes and nodded. "Thank you," she said. After we hung up, we called Carla. She listened. I could hear the kind sound her breath makes at the end of a sentence. "I am proud of you both," she said. "You brought light into a place where it was getting dark." We opened the binder together. We wrote a letter on clean paper. Anna wrote the first line. I wrote the second. We both signed the bottom. We dated it and slid it into the front pocket where the plastic is clear. The binder looked different with that page at the top. It looked like a thing a family could hold without choking. "Come," I said, "there is one more thing." We walked down the hall to Mom's room. I had left it as she liked it. Bed neat, blanket folded, lemon lotion on the nightstand. The ring dish from the sink sat there now, holding 2 lemon candies and a paperclip. The window was open a finger's width. The air still remembered her. I don't know why, but I keep feeling like she left us something we haven't seen. Anna smiled in a tired way. "You and your feelings," she said, and for the first time, that line sounded like affection, not scold. I lifted the little tin where she kept lemon candy. It was light. I shook it, a soft skitter. Under the last candy, taped to the bottom with a piece of old paper tape, was a small, folded note. My heart did a quiet, careful thing in my chest. I slid my nail under the tape and freed the paper. I unfolded it with both of us leaning in like girls over a secret. Her handwriting. Round and easy. Not like Anna's neat lists. Not like mine. Just Mom. "My girls," it began. "If you are reading this, it means the night was easy and you let me go. Thank you. Do not blame the machine. Do not blame each other. My lungs are tired.
I have had a good life with you."
"You do," I said, "and we can do it in a way that does not turn you into a villain. We can say what happened and how scared we were. We can say we are changing." She nodded. "I don't know how to be a person who is wrong," she said, and the sentence sounded like a child who needs a blanket. "I do," I said. "I will help you. We will be those people together." We made a list then, the kind my sister is good at, but this time the list had a different feel. It was not a wall. It was a bridge. Call Aunt May, tell Pastor Ruth, take lemon cake to Mr. Lopez, write a note to OxyCare. Thank you for patience, and we will not delay again for a discount, ever. Email to the family group, Mom's letter, photo, our addendum, attached, we love you. We baked another lemon cake because that is what we do when we need to hold the world steady. The smell filled the kitchen and made the day feel like a clean page. While it cooled, Anna stood at the sink and washed the bowl. She did it slowly, carefully, like someone learning how to be gentle with herself. In the evening, Aunt May came over with her cardigan buttoned wrong and her arms ready. We sat at the table and poured tea. The steam made that soft curtain between us again. Anna took a breath and told the truth. She said the lines she had said to Mr. Hale. She said them in a voice that did not beg and did not defend. She cried. Aunt May reached across the table and put her old hand on Anna's cheek. "You're my girl," she said. "You did the wrong thing, and then you did the right thing. I'm proud of this part." Pastor Ruth came by after. She is small and quick and has eyes that see both the mess and the miracle in people. We showed her Mom's note. She read it out loud. "No fuss," she said, and smiled that quiet smile. "Sounds like her." I said, "She wanted Rosemary by the sink." She said, "Then keep Rosemary by the sink and tell the story the way you'd want it told about you if you weren't here." Mr. Lopez stood on the step when he got off work. He had a cap in his hands and a little worry in his eyes, like he didn't want to make things worse by standing there. Anna stepped forward and put the plate of lemon cake in his hands. "Thank you," she said, "for the oranges, for the video, for being a witness. I am sorry I made a shadow over my sister." He looked at her like a neighbor looks when a storm passes and you both come out to check the fence. Eat. Rest. It was a blessing in 2 words. Word goes around in towns like ours. Not fast, not slow, just steady. People heard that the county had closed the file with a note about settings and stress and training. People heard that our mother died at home with her daughters, and one daughter turned the dial and told the truth later. People heard that the other daughter was not distracted, not careless, just a person who reads to her mother and sleeps sitting up. People said, "I'm sorry," and "I'm glad you told us," and "How can we help?" There were a few sharp looks here and there always are, but mostly there was a softening. The kind soft the world gives when someone puts down a heavy thing in public and doesn't run away. At night, when the house was quiet again, Anna and I sat with our tea and the binder on the table between us, not as a wall, but as a thing we had rewritten together. The garden was dark and steady beyond the glass. The window was still open a finger's width because some habits are holy. We read Mom's note one more time. We said good night to the room. "Our old life is broken," Anna said, her voice small, her face calm. "We can't put it back the way it was." "No," I said. "We can make a new one." The confession shattered us, but not like a dish thrown against a wall. It shattered us like ice at the end of winter, cracking to make way for water. The old hard picture broke. The river under it moved again. We did not drown. We did not pretend we were never cold.
We sat there with warm cups in our hands and let the sound of small, good things, tea, quiet, the breath of the house, teach us how to be sisters again in a room where the truth has a chair.
The next morning began with light rain, the gentle kind that makes the street shine. The kettle hummed. The kitchen smelled like ginger and lemon. I stood by the sink with my blue mug and watched the garden breathe. The rosemary bent and lifted, brave as always. The door closed softly when the mail came through the slot. The house felt different, but kind. Anna arrived without knocking. She had learned how to open the door and let it close gently again. Her hair was wet at the ends. She took off her shoes and put them side by side on the mat, neat as a small prayer. We didn't talk first. We made tea. "Mr. Hale emailed me," she said, when the cups were down and the steam had made a small curtain between us. "He added my addendum. He said the report will say, 'Settings changed and family under stress and no further action.' He said he was sorry for our loss." I nodded. The words didn't fix anything. They made the ground under us more solid. "I'm glad," she added. "I called OxyCare. I said I delayed an order to save money and that I won't do that again. The woman on the phone said, 'It happens,' and then told me we can set a reminder. I said it. Monday mornings. No discounts." "Good," I said. It was a small word, but it held a lot. We took the binder down and opened it on the table. The letter we wrote together sat on top. Anna traced the first line with her finger. I traced the second. "I want to change this into something else. Not a wall, a book. A book we can bear to open." "How?" she asked. Her voice had lost its sharp edges. It sounded like the sister who used to ask me how to make a paper flower. "We can keep the tabs," I said, "but we add one more at the end. Memories." I pulled out a stack of plain paper and a roll of tape. I slid a new tab on the last pages and wrote the word in blue pen. We can paste in recipes she liked. We can write down the silly things she said. We can print her note and put a copy here too. Anna breathed out slowly. "I like that." We worked for an hour without rush. I wrote lemon cake on a page and taped the recipe beneath it. Anna drew a tiny lemon in the corner. I wrote soup on another page and listed the bones of it: onion, carrot, rosemary, water, salt, patience. She smiled at patience and didn't correct it. I cut a clean copy of Mom's note and slid it into a plastic sleeve. We made a page called Little Orders and wrote in soft letters, "Leave the window a finger width. Put rosemary by the sink. Be kind to your own heart. No fuss." The binder changed in our hands. It didn't feel like evidence anymore. It felt like a book you keep by the kettle, pages you might read on a rainy day. After lunch, we drove to the church and sat with Pastor Ruth in her small office that smelled like paper and tea. We read Mom's note to her again. Anna spoke the truth, this time without looking for a place to hide inside it. "I turned it down," she said simply. "I delayed a delivery. I told a wrong story because I was afraid." Pastor Ruth didn't make her repeat it. She didn't make me speak. She said, "You told the truth. You can forgive yourself slowly. You can ask others to forgive you. You can make your life a place where people don't have to pretend. That's enough work for a while." We nodded. We drank our tea. The rain paused. You could hear the road outside like a slow river. We went to the cemetery next. The path was damp. The grass held small bright drops. We took a jar of rosemary and 2 lemon candies in the ring dish because that felt right.
We set them down and stood with our hands in our pockets, like we didn't know where else to put them. Anna spoke first. "I'm sorry, Mom, for the dial, for the delay, for putting a wall between me and my sister. I thought I was protecting us. I was protecting a picture of myself. I'm going to stop doing that." Her voice didn't shake. It didn't break. It stood upright like a person who had decided to. I reached down and touched the stone. It felt cool and solid. "We found your note," I said. "We left the window a finger width. We put rosemary by the sink. We're going to take care of each other. No fuss." We didn't stay long. You don't have to in a place where the love is bigger than the ground. At home, the door closed with that soft click that had become a small signal of peace. We set the ring dish back on Mom's nightstand with the lemon candies and the paperclip. We opened the window a finger width and let the good air in. I started therapy the next week. I wanted a place where my hurt could sit without being in the way. The counselor had a chair that didn't squeak and a plant that had been pruned and had grown back fuller. She asked me what forgiveness felt like in my mouth. I said, "Like warm water. Not exciting. Necessary." "And anger?" I said, "Like a hot pan. I put it down. I pick it up. I put it down again." We talked about the little line inside me that keeps me steady. We talked about how to keep it without making it a wall. We talked about telling the truth in daylight and how sometimes people love you for it and sometimes they don't, and you keep telling it anyway. Anna went with me to the grief group Carla mentioned. It was in a small room at the clinic with chairs in a circle and a plate of store-bought cookies in the middle. A man told a story about his brother who left him a note in a toolbox. A woman laughed through tears about how her mother's last words were, "Don't forget to water the spider plant," and she forgot for a week, because grief makes you forget things as ordinary as water. People nodded when Anna said, "I made a clean story because the messy one scared me," and no one scolded. They told the truth back to her, and she breathed easier.
When the county letter came, it was as Mr. Hale had promised. Careful, spare, human. It said what changed and what didn't. It said no fault. It said recommendations, a word that opened a window instead of closing a door. We put it in the binder behind our letter. We decided not to keep it at the front. We wanted the first thing anyone saw to be Mom's note. There were still conversations we had to have. We called Aunt May. We called cousins. We called the neighbor down the block who loved Mom's soup. Anna said, "I made a mistake, and then I made another," until the words began to feel like a new kind of truth that didn't have to hide. Some people cried. Some were quiet. One aunt said, "We all have our ways," which is how our family forgives without making a parade. The only person who said something that stung was a cousin who likes to keep things sharp. "So you blamed your sister?" she said to Anna. And the silence after made me want to protect her. Before I could, Anna said, "Yes, I did, and I am fixing it." The cousin didn't know where to put her sharp words then. She said, "Okay," and made a pie for Sunday. I wrote a letter to Mom one night at the kitchen table. "Dear Mom," I wrote, "the house is different. The rosemary is still stubborn. Anna is learning how to be a person who was wrong. I am learning how to be a person who doesn't need to be right to be safe. We keep the window a finger's width. We read your note when we feel wobbly. We made your lemon cake last Tuesday, and it cracked in the middle. We ate it anyway. Love, your girls." I put the letter in the front of the binder, behind the clear plastic, under her note. The binder had become a small altar to ordinary love. It didn't shine. It didn't need to. Carla asked us to speak to a group of new home care families at the clinic. "Tell them what helped," she said.
Tell them what hurt. Tell them what you wish someone had said. We stood in a room with chairs in 2 rows and a whiteboard that smelled faintly of marker. I told them about rosemary by the sink, about a finger's width of window, about leaving lemon cake on the counter, because sometimes the only thing you can do with grief is feed it a slice and keep moving. Anna told them about the dial. She said the words without rushing and without making her hands into fists. "Don't touch numbers in the night out of fear," she said. "Move the tubing. Call someone. Wake your sister. Wake yourself." People nodded and took notes. I saw a man in the front row exhale like a person who had been trying to hold a room together with his ribs. After, we ate cookies in the hallway and laughed at how terrible they were. "You'd think they could spring for better cookies," Anna said, rolling her eyes in a way that made me love her again in a new, old way. We didn't fix everything in a week. Some nights I still wake and listen for the oxygen that isn't there. Some days, Anna still talks in lists and I have to say feelings too. But there is a tenderness between us that wasn't there before. We say, "I'm sorry" in small ways that count. She texts me, "Thinking of soup?" I text back, "Always." On Wednesdays, we make tea at 7 and talk about nothing and then something. We call it no fuss. We take turns reading a page from the binder, any tab, like drawing a card. Meals one week, little orders the next. We treat it like a map we can both use without arguing over the road. One afternoon, we went through Mom's clothes. We folded sweaters and cried at the scarf that still smelled like her shampoo. She kept 2 cardigans. I kept the apron she wore when she made cinnamon rolls. We found a small box of letters Dad had written to her when they were young. Silly notes about rain and buses and soup. We read them to each other out loud, then put them in the binder's memory tab. I said, "They belong with the recipe. Bread and letters. Both feed you." The house needed small things done. The drawer stuck. The door rubbed. We learned how to rub a little wax on wood and make a hard thing glide. Anna did it, her hands careful. She said, "Dad taught me this." And for a second, we were both back in a kitchen with a different light, watching him teach us how to keep a home without making a fuss about it. We planted a rosemary bush by the kitchen window in the yard. Mr. Lopez helped dig the hole. He wiped his hands on a towel and said, "For your mother," like a blessing. We pressed the roots in and patted the earth. It looked small and certain. He said, "It will take. It's stubborn. Like you two." On rainy days, I still open the window a finger's width and lean on the counter with my blue mug. I watch the drops turn the glass into a gentle screen. I listen to the kettle finish its song. I smell the lemon on the clean counter. I feel the house hold me like it has learned new ways to keep me steady. On dry days, I leave the door open for a minute and listen to the garden be itself. The silence out there is a friend now, not a warning. Sometimes I miss the sound of the oxygen like a soft sea. Grief is like that. It misses even the hard sounds because they meant someone you love was alive in the next room. When that happens, I turn on the radio low to a station that plays old songs. I pretend the hum is a friend, not a machine. I breathe with it until the missing loosens. Anna and I went to the park on a bright day and sat on a bench near the pond. Ducks made their little V's on the water. Kids laughed like tiny bells. We didn't talk for a while. Then she said, "Do you think Mom knew about the dial?" I asked. "No," she said. "About us. That we would find our way back to each other even after I did the worst thing I've ever done." I said, "Yes." It wasn't a hope. It was a knowing. She left a note for that. We smiled. We watched a woman share bread with a slow hand. We went home and made soup and ate it with bread, dipping the crusts into the bowl the way we did when we were little. The kitchen was warm.
The door closed gently. The garden leaned into the window like it was glad to see us. I wrote a small list for myself in my notebook, not a binder page, just a pocket list. It said, "Tell the truth in daylight. Be gentle with my own heart. Make soup on Wednesdays. Keep rosemary by the sink. Leave the window a finger's width. Forgive slowly. Keep going." I kept that list taped inside a cabinet door where the mugs sit. Every morning when I reach for the blue one, I see it. It helps.
Over time, the calls stopped coming. The county closed the file. The church ladies moved on to the next casserole. Mr. Lopez went back to telling me the weather before I looked out the window. The world didn't forget. It just folded our story into itself the way towns do. Now when people talk about Mom, they say she was kind and she loved lemon candy, and sometimes her girls are doing okay. That is enough. Anna asked me once if I wanted to move. "We could sell," she said softly. "We could both start over somewhere no one knows us." I looked around the kitchen, the rosemary, the jar with lemon wedges, the soft light that knows how to lower its voice. "I want to stay," I said. "I don't want to leave a house that learned how to hold the truth." "Okay," she said. "I'll help with repairs. I'll pay for the things I should have paid for before. I'll come on Wednesdays and clean the drawer tracks with a toothbrush and make you roll your eyes." "Deal," I said, and we both laughed. It felt good to be sisters in a way that didn't require a chart or a ceremony. On the first big rain of the new season, I woke early and went to the kitchen. The window wore a film of silver. The kettle hummed. The door made its gentle sound when the paper slid in. I picked up the mail and found a small envelope with no return address. Inside was a photo of a rosemary plant in a jar on a windowsill. On the back, in round, easy handwriting, it said, "Good job, my girls. No fuss." I stood very still and let my heart do what it needed to do. I put the photo in the binder under Memories and made tea. I never asked who sent it. Some gifts are better without labels. They live in the room with you like a warm light and remind you that you are not the only one who knows how to tend a small thing into something strong. Forgiveness came like rain after a long, dry season. Soft at first, then steady enough to fill the cracks. I didn't force it. I didn't schedule it in the binder. I let it find me at the sink with my hands in warm water, at the table with a pen in my hand, on a walk when a sparrow scolded me for nothing and I laughed. When it came, I didn't make a speech. I sat with Anna at the kitchen table and said, "I forgive you." And she closed her eyes like a person hearing a song she had been missing and said, "Thank you." And that was it. We ate toast. We didn't make a fuss. We still talk about Mom in the present sometimes. She likes the window a finger's width, one of us will say, and the other will nod and open it. She says, "Eat soup," one of us will joke, and the other will put the pot on. It's not pretending. It's a way of keeping her in the house without keeping our grief stuck to the floor. The last time I sat with Carla, she asked me what I wanted the end of this story to sound like. I thought about the rain, the kettle, the door, the garden. I thought about the binder changed by a letter and a new tab. I thought about my sister's face when she told the truth and the way the air shifted in the room, lighter. I want it to sound like a kitchen at peace, like tea poured, like a door closing softly, like rain that doesn't scare anybody.
She smiled. "It does," she said. I walked home in a light drizzle and stood under the eave listening to the drops make their small music on the steps. I pushed the door with my hip and let it close behind me with that good sound. I set water on to boil. I opened the window, a finger's width. Enough. The garden looked back at me, green and steady. The rosemary held its place. The air smelt like rain on honest earth. I held my mug with both hands and thanked the room for keeping me. I thanked my mother for her small orders. I thanked my sister for telling the truth. We were not the same girls who stood by a machine and tried to keep the world together with lists and lullabies. We were women who let light into a hard place and turned a wall into a book. We learned to hold each other without asking for perfect. We learned to keep a house where truth can sit at the table and eat a slice of lemon cake without any fuss.
The house is quiet in the good way again. In the morning, light lays itself along the table like a soft cloth. The kettle hums. The air smells like lemon on a clean counter and a little like rain, even when the sky is clear. I open the window a finger's width and set a sprig of rosemary by the sink. It's a habit now, but more than a habit. It's a promise we keep. The binder sits by the kettle, not like a wall anymore, but like a book that belongs in a kitchen, a place for recipes and notes, and the small orders that keep a life gentle. Sometimes I open it to Mom's letter and read the lines out loud, even if no one else is in the room. Be kind to your own hearts. No fuss. The paper is worn soft at the fold where we touch it most. Anna comes on Wednesdays with her hair pulled up and a cloth for the drawer tracks. She sets her shoes side by side on the mat. She says, "No fuss?" And I say, "No fuss," and we put the kettle on. We choose a page from the Memories tab and let it decide the evening. Lemon cake one week, soup the next. We tell the same story twice and still find new parts of it. Sometimes she reaches across the table and squeezes my hand without words. Sometimes I squeeze back. That is a new language for us. The county letter is filed behind our addendum. It lives there without sharp edges. When I think of that whole hard season now, I don't see forms first. I see the night chair, the window open a finger's width, Anna's head bent in the yard over the rosemary, Carla's kind hands, Mr. Hale's steady voice, Aunt May's cardigan buttoned wrong. I see Mom's note under the lemon candies. I hear the soft click of the door and the way the house learned a new shape around the truth. Grief still visits. It comes like rain on a roof. Some days a mist. Some days a steady sound you can hear in your bones. When it comes, I don't fight it. I make tea. I stand at the sink and let the steam warm my face. I say her name and thank her for telling us to leave windows open and to be kind to our own hearts. I let the sadness move through the rooms like a slow visitor who knows not to open drawers. Forgiveness did not knock once and come in forever. It came in small steps, in lemon cake, in Wednesdays, in the word sorry said without a shield. It lives here now the way light does, sometimes soft, sometimes bright, always willing to return if you make a space for it. I forgave her for turning the dial and for putting my name where hers should have been. She forgave herself and starts. I forgave me for not being able to catch everything. We do not try to be heroes. We try to be kind. Mostly, our life is simple again. I go to the clinic, I greet people with shaky hands and tell them they're okay. I water the rosemary by the window and the new bush in the yard, the one Mr. Lopez helped us plant. On Sundays, I carry a lemon candy in my pocket to church and put it in my mouth after the last hymn because it feels like a small ceremony only I know.
On bright days, Anna and I walk to the park and sit on the bench by the pond and say nothing for 3 whole minutes. It feels like courage to leave silence alone. Sometimes we talk about that night, not to pull it open, not to punish either of us, but to keep it from hardening into a thing without air. We say, I was afraid, and I didn't know how, and I see you. We say, thank you for calling, and thank you for telling me, and thank you for staying. We do not need a villain to be sisters. We need a table, a kettle, a window of fingers with, and the choice to tell the truth in daylight. If there is a lesson I hold in my hands now, it is small, and it fits in a kitchen. Tell the truth, even when it is messy. Put down what is not yours to carry. Forgive slowly and for real. Make the kind of home where people can say, I was wrong, and the roof does not fall. Keep rosemary by the sink. Open the window. Eat soup. No fuss. On the first big rain of spring, I woke before the alarm and went to the kitchen. The glass wore a veil of silver. The garden leaned toward the window as if it wanted to listen. I put water on and waited for the soft hum. I set 2 cups on the table because hope is a habit too. When Anna walked in, damp at the edges, she smiled at the cups and the binder and the way the house held us. She said, "See you Wednesday?" Even though it was only Monday. I said, "See you Wednesday," and we both laughed at how good that sounded. We stood side by side at the sink, looking out at the rosemary and the wet grass and the quiet that belongs to a house at peace. I touched the ring dish on the nightstand as I passed and placed 2 lemon candies in it, just because. I opened the window of fingers with and felt the good air come in. I said thank you, not loud, but enough, for the truth that found us, for the love that stayed, for the room that learned how to hold both without breaking.